India has successfully touched down on the lunar surface, and with it begun the much-awaited exploration of the south polar region of the moon. Just a few hours after the moon landing, the lander Vikram.
On August 23, 2023, the world came to a halt as India inscribed its mark in the heavens. Chandrayaan-3, the Indian Space Research Organization's lunar mission, landed flawlessly near the moon's coveted south pole, a location no other country has visited. Flags flew, scientists celebrated, and 1 billion people delighted in the win. But while headlines lauded India's progress in space, something else happened. Somewhat quiet, something chilly. Within days after arrival, Chandrayaan-3's data stream began to disclose features that contradicted the script. Heat where there should be cold, pulses where there should be quiet, and formations beneath the regolith that no geology textbook could explain. The Nobel-winning physicist then issued a warning: this is more than merely extraordinary. This is unprecedented. What began as a scientific endeavor had found something that could not be rejected, not by data, doubt, or silence. Something pulsated beneath the frigid shell of the moon. Something old, organized, and potentially conscious. In this video, we discuss what Chandrayaan-3 actually discovered, why global scientists are now terrified, and how this revelation may compel us to rewrite everything we thought we understood about the moon, and possibly even ourselves. Because after this, you may never see the moon in the same way again. The arrival of Chandrayaan-3 was not just a technological milestone, but also a geopolitical thunderclap. India made history when the Vikram lander gently touched the cratered surface of the moon's south pole. Vikram was accompanied by the Pragyan rover, a 6-wheeled scout capable of analyzing soil composition, scanning underlying layers, and detecting water ice, a resource that may fuel future missions and lunar civilization. For the first several hours, everything was usual. The rover returned crisp photographs of the harsh gray landscape, confirmed water signals, and mapped the surrounding area. But then the abnormalities started. Temperatures in permanently shadowed craters, considered to be colder than Pluto, suddenly rose well beyond freezing. Instruments meant to detect temperature changes began detecting geothermal-like heat beneath the surface. That alone contradicted every lunar model. At the same time, Vikram's radar and spectrometers began to detect electromagnetic signals, weak, repetitive pulses with precise timing. They weren't completely random. They were not background sounds. They repeated every few hours in a predictable rhythm. At first, ISRO experts assumed it was an equipment problem. However, additional inspections revealed that the instruments were in great working order. When the Pragyan rover approached one of the heat zones, its radar penetrated the surface and discovered something buried. Not rock, not ice, voids, structured, geometric. Too exact to be natural. What did they just land on? The lunar South Pole has long been shrouded in mystery, with its craters always under shadow. Scientists anticipated to discover freezing quiet. What Chandrayaan-3 discovered instead was warmth and structure. Using ground-penetrating radar, the Pragyan rover searched under the powdery surface near a heat anomaly. What it discovered surprised mission control. There were voids under the regolith, vast arching caverns organized in perfect patterns, perfect curves, repeating spacing, and parallel alignment. Lava tubes. This was the original theory. However, lava tubes have an uneven, untidy, and wild form. These were not. These appeared to be engineered. Adding to the enigma, Vikram's neutron spectrometer began to detect signs of unusual materials hidden within these spaces. Not only uncommon elements, but isotopes with signatures never detected on the moon or Earth. Even more perplexing, they appeared to be organized in lattice-like formations, akin to how sophisticated conductors or data grids are constructed. Then came the tremor. Vikram's seismometer detected mild vibrations, but not from meteor impacts or natural earthquakes. The pulses were timed, consistent, and extensive. They started around the gaps and spread outward, like a heartbeat. Each pulse transmitted both physical vibration and a slight electromagnetic reverberation. Scientists were suddenly faced with a scary possibility. It wasn't only geology. These formations were organized, responsive, and they might not be dormant. The moon had traditionally been considered lifeless. Chandrayaan-3 has just questioned that, and what it discovered might mark the start of a far greater discovery. Initially, the pulses appeared to be a strange tremor. However, scientists quickly determined they were more than simply tremors. They were patterns, rhythmic, measured, and repetitive. Vikram's seismometer detected pulses every 2 hours, perfectly timed and with no observable source. There are no repercussions, no tectonic movement, and as the rover approached the voids, the pulses became stronger, not louder, but more detailed, as if they were sending something. Even strangely, they weren't just seismic. They had an electromagnetic signature that was varied, wave-like, and had subtle harmonics. To the untrained eye, it appeared immobile. But what about those physicists who are paying careful attention? It looked like code. India's ISRO covertly distributed the data to overseas partners. When investigators at a European observatory compared previous Apollo data, they discovered a startling connection. A similar tiny pulse had been observed in the 1970s, but rejected as an equipment error. Now, the glitch had reappeared, stronger and more structured than before. A Nobel-winning scientist who studied the Chandrayaan-3 data issued a strong warning. This is not a geological phenomenon. This is a broadcast. Was this a signal? Is the system checking itself? Or is anything attempting to be heard? Whatever it was, it obeyed the rules. Rules that implied an aim. And if that's true, the moon isn't merely reflecting energy. It's talking. And for the first time, Earth is listening. When ISRO experts processed the electromagnetic pulse data through a spectrum breakdown, they discovered something extraordinary. The signal was not random. It had structure, recursion, symmetry. It followed a fractal pattern, which is a mathematical arrangement in which each little portion reflects the bigger total. That is something you see in nature, tree branches, lightning, and even human lungs. But not in raw electromagnetic data, not until it has been programmed. That altered everything. The signals from pulsars, quasars, and black holes are strong, yet chaotic. This included embedded logic, a pattern that appeared to be created for effective information compression, similar to how computers encode data to conserve space. What does this mean? This indicates that the signal might be more than simply energy. It could also be information, encoded, archived, or worse, active. Even more concerning, simulations found that these frequencies had a modest interaction with Earth's own electromagnetic field, known as the Schumann resonance. This is the natural vibration of the Earth's atmosphere. The moon's signal was feeble, yet it matched and varied with solar light. It was responding. One ISRO researcher stated it bluntly: "It's as if the moon is in sync with Earth." This was not by chance, by design. This prompted an even more fundamental question. If the signal is organized, who or what formed it? Most importantly, are they still listening? The moon was not only sending noise, it can be storing, responding, or learning. In the closing days before lunar twilight, Chandrayaan-3's cameras photographed an unbelievable scene. The rover's high-resolution imagery revealed unusual distortions in particular areas of the surface. In these regions, sunlight behaved abnormally. Shadows curved in the wrong direction. Reflections spread randomly. The flat terrain seemed bent. At first, ISRO assumed it was a sensor malfunction. However, when computer models mimic the behavior, the reality was considerably more unsettling. These were not ordinary shadows. They operated like cloaking fields, distorting light just enough to disguise what was beneath. And this was not at random. The distortions were completely matched with the previously discovered subsurface cavities. Further spectrum research indicated that these locations included metamaterials, which are unusual chemicals capable of manipulating electromagnetic waves. In short, the moon was concealing something, intentionally. As if that weren't enough, Pragyan's equipment detected a rapid surge in electromagnetic pulses, coinciding with a huge solar flare from the sun. The pulse did not just intensify, it also altered frequency, responding in real time. Then, quiet. The rover went black. Scientists were left startled. The terrain was obscured, the signal was organized, and the system, whatever it was, seemed to respond to energy, almost as if it had been asleep. Chandrayaan-3 did not merely detect unusual geology. It may have roused something that had been slumber for millennia. And now, that something may be awake. Chandrayaan-3 was never intended to alter the course of human history. It was intended to investigate, validate hypotheses, and gather dust and data. Instead, it discovered something buried beneath the moon, something old, intelligent, and potentially still alive. The rhythmic pulses, symmetrical voids, and light-bending shadows were not random. They were components of a system that responds, learns, and could have been waiting for contact. We used to conceive of the moon as a lifeless rock, a remnant of solar creation. But Chandrayaan-3 demonstrated that there could be more: a machine, a memory, and a monitor. Something not simply placed in orbit, but maybe constructed for it. And the question reverberates louder than ever. What have we awakened? Was it observing us all along? Was it waiting? The most horrifying aspect: is it done alone? One thing is certain: we will never look at the moon in the same way again, because it is no longer simply a satellite. It is a signal, and we just answered the phone.